On what's happening there. Charles Ortel joins us again, founder of Ventures. Thank you. Good to see you, Charles. Look, the economy, hammered, awful. It's not good in Ukraine. It's not good in Crimea. Who's hurt the worst in terms of the industries in Crimea?
Well, I think the centerpiece of Crimea, really, it's a touristic destination, which was primarily popular for Russians. To a lesser extent, you had people from the West going there. You had Ukrainians living elsewhere in Ukraine going there, particularly during the summer. So I think, there's no question that the Russian economy has been hurt somewhat. There's no question that the Ukrainian economy is in a shambles. But equally, there's also no question that Vladimir Putin's naked aggression and conquest has been unchecked.
Yeah, I mean, look, this has been a huge story that all of us have been following, and I guess a lot of people are asking as to what's next. Let me focus back on the economy in Crimea first, and we'll get to what might be next. What's going to happen if tourism is the biggest issue, and that's not doing well, and doesn't look like that's going to bounce back anytime soon, what can they really do at this point?
I don't think there's much you can do at all, and I really think that, it's important to remember when we talk about how sanctions are weakening Russia. It's important to remember that Russia's external debt is very small in relation to its GDP. And furthermore, the Russians, sadly, are used to suffering far more than people in the West and America are used to suffering. So I don't think sanctions in the end are really going to be dispositive. And I also don't see the Europeans as having the will to continue with them.
The financial situation, the currency, there has been some significant financial changes within Crimea. Has that had an impact, either positive or negative?
I think on balance, it's certainly got to be negative. I don't think there are that many adventurous people in the West who are going to say, aha, hotel rooms are a lot cheaper in dollar terms. Why don't I book my summer vacation in the Crimea? So I don't think you're going to see a pickup from the West in tourism to offset all that's been lost. And we have to remember as well, the Crimean economy is pretty small.
Let me start with the impact on international companies. Mickey D's, Amazon, I mean, we can go on and on with the list, but there are a lot of international companies that are going to look at that entire area and say, hey, wait a minute, we just don't want to take the risk, or we don't think that we're going to make money. What are they possibly thinking? Do they think this is a temporary situation that maybe they'll come back later at some point?
Well, I think if you're ticking off the various international markets that you might want to either enter or deploy more capital to, at this moment in time, Russia must be very low on the list, and any country that is a border state with Russia that might be contested must also be pretty low on the list. There are, as I said, adventurous people and companies that will say, the best time to invest is when blood is running in the streets. I think those are few and far between. So unfortunately, if Russia's goal were to attract Western investment, that's not going to happen for a long time. On the other hand, the way Russia's likely looking at it, they've sewed up great deals with India, with China, to supply energy eastward. I don't think that...
Our good friend, Mr. Putin, President Putin, we'll get to this part now where you can speculate a little bit. What do you think he wants? What's the end game for him?
Well, looking through Russian history, the long sweep of Russian history that goes back many centuries, I think Putin at this stage in his life, rumored to have more than $100 billion personally, I think he's trying to earn his place in the long pantheon of greats inside Russia. And so he sees an opportunity to stand up, to break up the status quo, to break up the EU, potentially to break up NATO, and to prey upon actually the weakened financial status of Western Europe, much as Western Europe tried to do to him.
Here's something I've always wanted to ask you. We've talked about these sanctions before. Some say they work, some say they don't work, but what we do know is that the economy is not doing well in Russia. And I wonder, does that anger President Putin even more that causes him to want to do something perhaps even more extreme?
Exactly. I mean, he did snap military exercises that are going on right now. He has been, around the world, been pressing everywhere. He's sending ships and planes, even, over Canadian airspace, close to American airspace. He certainly does not seem cowed. And I don't think we're listening to what animates his problems and his aggression. He sees the Western system quite clearly as, too highly leveraged, too bloated, not run properly, and a danger, frankly, to the world.
Are we talking about a new Cold War?
I think we're in a new Cold War already. Could be a hot war.
All right, Charles Ortel, always good to have you here for your candid answers. Thank you very much.